Hi ladies, today I'd like to talk to you about how we as women are going to birth a new world. Now, in a previous episode we talked about how women are the birthers and that our innate value comes from having the ability to birth new things into this world. And so we are the feminine embodiment. Now, if we're going to talk about birthing, of course we have to talk about the womb. And our womb comes along with a whole bunch of other energies that we also need to discuss, because if we want to birth things into the world that are of light, first we have to clear up the energies around our womb so that it can come through with light versus with shadow or distortion or our wounding. So what other energies do we hold here in that womb space? Well, we certainly hold any energy around sexuality here within the womb space. And also a lot of our subconscious programming, and especially the subconscious wounding, the things that we haven't resolved around ourselves as women, but also around sexuality, is all stored right here. And of course, there is a lot of wounding around the feminine, around our sexuality in our world today. Many women have experienced, forms of sexual abuse or molestation, rape, and so forth. And so that is very intense to deal with. And if to the degree that we have either healed from it or not healed from it, that will affect everything that's going on within our womb and our ability to birth things in a clean way in this world. Now, when we have had some form of sexual trauma, it's not really so much about what happened to us. Now, I know that a lot of women, or people in general, men and women, have both suffered from sexual abuse in some form or another, high percentage, much more than we would like to think in this world. And when we have that kind of an event happen to us, of course it's traumatizing, and a lot of shame comes in to because we might blame ourselves, or we feel ashamed of what happened to us, or we want to hide that. And so when we do that, that shame causes us to hide, and it causes us to push whatever it was that happened to us away. Now, sometimes we feel that we were a victim to what happened, and we were maybe a victim to what happened, but to continue to tell ourselves that we're a victim ongoing because of what happened to us, that creates a mindset of victimhood. And that mindset of victimhood will kind of create a story or a narrative in your mind that attracts to you more situations that then reinforces the story of victimhood. And then we end up playing out the story of victimhood throughout our whole lives until we choose to change that story. So what's happening here within the womb space is very much that story that's going on within our subconscious that we keep repeating and repeating and repeating. And that really affects what we are able to create or birth into our world. And it's also going to affect what we attract, because this energy that's stored here in the womb, or in other ways we might call it the hara, the second chakra, the sacral chakra, and it is a magnetic energy. So this energy is our life force, our chi, our ki, and we flow that energy out into our life, and then that energy will flow back to us. And so there's this like infinity loop that flows from us out into the world, and from the world back to us. And according to what we are flowing out, especially when what we are flowing out, the world will send and respond to that pattern of energy and flow it back to us. So if we have a story of victimhood going on, that we're always a victim, we're flowing that energy out into the world, and the world is going to flow back to us a response that basically affirms what we have put out, or it reconfirms, it mirrors that. And so then we create this world of victimhood and a life of victimhood. And I don't think any of us really enjoy that. So what we need to do is we need to shift this story that's going on inside of us. Now, I'd like you to realize that you are not what happened to you. Right? Whatever happened to you, whatever circumstances, that does not define you. And you are a divine being. You are a goddess. And yes, you may have had an event happen in your life, an experience that might have caused some trauma, but that does not define you or who you are. Part of what defines us maybe is what we do with what we experienced, right? Whatever circumstance life brought us, whatever event we might have experienced, however traumatic it might have been, what we become is what we do with that situation. So if we're going to continue to tell ourselves that we're a victim because of that thing that happened to us in the past, that is not here today, right now, it was in the past, and yet we're carrying it around with us today, right now, then we end up projecting that onto our present and projecting that onto our future and continuing to create more of the same. But if we say, no, I'm not a victim to what happened to me, I'm not defined by what happened to me, I am defined by who I am inside, who I was even before this life. There is a spirit, there is an essence, there's a consciousness to me that is who I am. And that is not defined by my life circumstances. And I'm going to rise above. I'm going to take this experience and I'm going to figure out how I can turn that negative into a positive. I'm going to redirect this experience in my life so that I can make the most of it. So it might not have been something that we attracted to us. It might have just been there's some bad person out there that did something really bad to us. But we still have a choice of what we make of that. And so when we realize that, okay, I am whatever I make of my life circumstances, and I am also something far beyond this life. And what I want to do now is I want to gain independence from that old story, from that old trauma. I want to become free from that so that that thing that happened doesn't have to keep defining me or being recreated in my life under different circumstances in the future. I want to be truly free and independent of that. And that means I need to change my story about it. That means I need to instead use that situation as a catalyst and maybe a focal point for healing. I'm going to step onto a healing journey because through the trauma, as we step into the healing, we can discover things about ourselves that we didn't even realize before. We can bring forth strength that we did not know we had, and we might not have tapped into that source of strength within us if we hadn't decided that we're going to have independence and freedom in our lives from that past situation. So we need to let go of the past and realize, okay, it happened, it is what it is, but what can I do with it now? How can I heal? How can I rise above it? How can I transcend it? And rather than being angry about what happened in the past or ashamed about what happened in the past or judging what happened in the past, I'm going to just redefine myself here now and let go of that past because it doesn't define me. It's not who I am. And when we can do this, when we can let go of the shame, when we can let go of the anger, when we can redefine ourselves and come to accept ourselves and love ourselves and nurture ourselves, and that is what the healing journey is a self-care process. So when we as women really start to turn our attention towards our own healing and towards self-care and self-nurture, rather than all these sort of codependencies that come into our relationships because of a sense of victimhood or that I'm not enough and therefore I need to get these other aspects from somebody else. I need to have my needs fulfilled by somebody else or other people around me, but they're never going to fulfill our needs. So then we're always going to be in this cycle of never feeling loved enough because other people aren't fulfilling our needs the way we think we need them fulfilled or the way we want them to be fulfilled. That's attachment. That's codependency. So we need independence. And to gain that, we need to really start fulfilling our own needs. We need to start taking care of ourselves. And when we can fill our cup, and when we take care of ourselves and love ourselves and give ourselves the attention that we want, that we would love for others to give to us, now we don't need those things from other people. Now we can stand in our own foundation, in our own ground, and feel good about where we stand. We can feel balanced. We can feel strong within who we are. And then we don't need to be afraid of what others might do because we're starting to feel re-empowered. And when we feel re-empowered, the other big key that comes with this, especially around sexual energy, is boundaries. You know, a lot of women, especially when they have been violated in some way, they lose a sense of proper boundaries, and they don't know when to say no. And saying no is our job. That is our position, that we are the ones as women, we are the ones that sets the container, which means we set the boundaries. And it is our responsibility. You know, the masculine's energy is one to push the envelope, right? To push the boundary. The woman's responsibility is to establish the boundary. So if the masculine is pushing the boundary and the woman's not establishing the boundary, then yes, there's going to be an encroachment upon those boundaries. And we might say, oh, it's their fault, those, you know, the toxic masculinity, whatever, but that is just a projection, and that is displacing responsibility. And instead of seeing ourselves as empowered and as having the ability to, you know, honor ourselves, we're projecting it outside of ourselves. And anytime we're projecting that responsibility outside of ourselves, we're giving our power away. And when we give our power away, we feel again victimized. So this is a vicious cycle that the only way to change that cycle is to take our power back and to say, no, I am responsible. The only way to be in our power is to be in self-responsibility. So it doesn't mean blame, right? Responsibility does not mean blame. Responsibility means the ability to respond. And a part of that is establishing boundaries and communicating those boundaries and saying, no, that's as far as it goes. And if it goes any farther, then here's the consequence. And then being willing to follow through on that consequence, because our boundaries are only as good and as strong as we're ready to follow through on them. So this is a really important piece of reclaiming our power as women and stepping into a place where when I establish boundaries, it's because I'm honoring myself. And as I honor myself, it's because I love myself. And as I love myself and I honor myself, then I'm in a position of being capable of honoring and loving another person as well. Because when boundaries are clear, then the relationship can become clear. When the boundaries are not clear, then people don't know where they stand. No matter who it is that's in that relationship with us, they don't know where they stand. And they might feel like they're walking on eggshells all the time, because one minute you're this way and another minute you're that way. And so instead, when we have clear boundaries, we can have healthy and balanced relationships. And we can stand in our power, and we won't be victimized. When you're a person in your power, you're not going to be a target for anyone who would have ill intent, because they're just going to see, no, that person's not to be messed with, because they're strong, they're powerful, they're not afraid, they know who they are, they walk with confidence. Like, they're going to look for an easy target if they're a villain. They're not going to look for the hard target. So having a clear sense of independence, a clear sense of freeing ourselves from the past, not allowing our past to define us, but instead defining who you are by you, what's going on inside of you. And then really taking that self-responsibility to have the independence in your life, to set the boundaries, to create healthy relationships, and to honor yourself. So this is where our healing journey starts when it comes to healing any wounding within our sexuality, any wounding of shame or anything that we might have suppressed down into our subconscious, and any anger that we might have suppressed, or anything where we feel hurt and unresolved around something from the past. It's going to start healing by you really giving yourself the love and the attention and the care and the nurture. And that is then the energy that when we can learn to give ourselves that energy as women, then we can flow that into our world and start to create more love and care and nurture in our world. And that is what our world really needs right now. It needs love, right? Our world needs, people need to feel like they matter, like they're cared about. Whereas right now, all we have is separation and angst and anger and victimhood and violence, and people, I don't matter enough, so therefore I gotta yell and scream and shout to get attention because I don't feel like people care about me. Okay, but if we as women start flowing this care and nurture that people do matter, we matter, you matter, we're going to flow that love and that care and nurture to people, but we can't do it until we give it to ourselves first. So again, as women, we create by starting within, by being the change, by giving to ourselves inwardly what it is we want to be receiving, what it is we want to be birthing or creating into our world around us. And then as we are giving it to ourselves, our cup becomes full of that new energy. And then from our overflow, we give that out into the world, and we flow and create beauty in our world. So that is our job and our role as women in the authentic feminine form of creation. It's not an outward demonstrative form of creation. It's an inward creation, and from the inward, we express it outwardly, and we birth that and flow that into the world. So whatever it is for you that you feel you need to heal around your sexuality, around any woundedness in the feminine, any sense of victimhood or codependencies where you don't feel fully strong and independent within yourself, start looking within and finding those areas, and then ask yourself, how can I let go of the shame around it? How can I let go of the anger or the hurt around it? How can I redefine myself based on self-love, based on acceptance, and also based on authentic empowerment that comes from the inside? I fulfill my needs. Don't need anyone else to fulfill those needs for me because I can do that for myself. That allows you to then stand in your own foundation. And then don't stop there. Don't be like, I'm so independent that I don't need anyone. I don't need a man. I don't need this. I don't need that. Okay, independence is good, but don't go too far with it, right? Don't start walling yourself off from the world, because we are here to co-create. So once you establish independence versus codependence, the next thing is, now how do I establish a co-creative flow with other people in my life? And we can create an interdependence where I have my independence and I know I'm good and strong on my own, but there's other people who have other talents, other skills that they can bring to the plate, so that I don't have to do everything myself. I can find this really beautiful dance of co-creation with others in my life. And there's a lot more joy and a lot more fulfillment that comes from that experience. So we want the independence, yes, but we also want to be able to be open and feel trusting and able to co-create with others in relationship. And if there is an issue of trust, and whether or not you can trust other people, which often does relate to old sexual trauma, that trust is ultimately about you trusting yourself. When you can trust yourself, and you know that you're strong enough, and you know that you will protect yourself because you will establish those boundaries, then when you trust yourself, you can also trust your judgment of who other people are that you would be in a good co-creative relationship with. So a lot of this is about knowing thyself, and the more you come to know thyself, the easier it is for you to discern where you want to engage and invest your energy in co-creation with others. So we'll talk about discernment in another episode, but I hope you've enjoyed this and that there's something here that's stirring. Can be a very controversial topic, and that's okay. You don't necessarily have to agree with me, but I would encourage you to just consider the possibilities. Consider the options here that are being presented, and try it on for size, and see if it might help shift a perspective for you in your own life, and if it will empower you to shift and move beyond the things that have been causing limitation or that have been stopping you from creating the kind of life that you want to live. So if you've enjoyed this, then click to subscribe, and also if you want to share it with anyone else that you think would enjoy or benefit from this, please do share. And if you have any other questions or topics around feminine empowerment that you'd like to hear addressed, then leave them in the comments section below, and we'll see you next time.